All right, welcome to This Explainer. Today, we're basically turning into biological detectives to uncover exactly why ear piercings behave the way they do. Seriously, if you've ever found yourself babying a super irritated ear months after leaving the piercing studio, trust me, you're not alone. By the end of this deep dive, we're going to piece together the ultimate, completely science-backed survival guide to pain-free healing.
Look, we've got to start with a little scientific empathy here because it is incredibly frustrating, right? You get this tiny little millimeter-wide hole punched in your ear, and yet half a year later it still throbs when you accidentally brush it taking off a sweater. I mean, it seems completely disproportionate. Why on earth does a tiny cartilage piercing hurt for 6 months when a paper cut heals up in a few days? Well, to solve this mystery, we have to look at the unique biology of the ear.
Okay, let's dive into this. Looking at the biology, we quickly find the culprit behind almost all of your piercing pain, avascular tissue. See, cartilage isn't like your skin. It's avascular, which means it has absolutely no blood vessels, no lymphatics, and no direct nerve supply of its own inside the matrix. Every single cartilage cell survives purely by diffusion. Nutrients and oxygen literally have to slowly seep in from the perichondrium. That's the thin, fibrous membrane wrapped around the outside. And this total lack of blood flow, it fundamentally changes how your body responds to trauma.
So, here's our roadmap for survival today. 1. Cartilage versus soft tissue. 2. Helix versus conch piercings. 3. The physics of healing. And 4. Healing do's and don'ts. Let's get right into it.
Section 1. Cartilage versus soft tissue.
And this brilliantly illustrates exactly why these two tissues heal so differently. Let's start with the earlobe. This is fibroadipose tissue. It's highly vascular, soft, mobile, and honestly incredibly forgiving. When a needle goes through a lobe, blood arrives in seconds, platelets form a plug, and healing begins almost instantly. A lobe feels totally stable in just 4 to 6 weeks. But then, we have ear cartilage. When a needle passes through this avascular, rigid structure, it doesn't just make a clean surgical cut. It physically crushes the cartilage matrix. You're creating a mechanical injury that your body simply cannot fix with its normal, fast-acting vascular response. It's a really slow, diffusion-dependent repair job that takes months to fully resolve.
Moving on to Section 2, Helix versus conch piercings.
So, the helix is the classic outer rim of the ear. The key number here, 1.5. We're talking a maximum of just 1.5 millimeters of cartilage thickness. Because that outer rim is so incredibly thin, the needle transit is extremely fast. Most people describe getting a helix piercing as a sharp, highly localized pressure that peaks for literally 1 second. And fun fact, that sharpness actually comes from the needle piercing the perichondrium membrane, which remember, does have nerves, rather than the cartilage itself.
Now contrast that immediately with 3.5 millimeters. That is the thickness of the deep central bowl of your ear, right where the conch piercing goes. Because the conch cartilage is so dense and concave, the needle transit time is noticeably longer. You're dealing with a much larger zone of mechanical injury here. The piercer actually has to support the back of your ear with a receiving tube, so you're going to feel a lot of firm pressure before the needle even enters the tissue.
Now, what's really interesting about this is how it perfectly visualizes the trade-offs. For pain, the helix is a 1-second sharp sting, while the conch leaves you with this deep, dull ache for maybe 3 to 5 days as that enclosed central bowl gets inflamed. But consider the primary healing risks here. The exposed helix, it catches on absolutely everything. Hair, masks, shirts, you name it. The conch, safely tucked away inside the ear, rarely snags, but because it's so deep in there, it's incredibly difficult to actually see and clean properly.
Okay, wait. Before we leave the piercer's chair, we definitely need to address something that catches a ton of people off guard, especially with the conch, the audible crunch, or, a loud pop. It can honestly sound like something went terribly wrong right next to your eardrum. But take a deep breath, it is completely normal and entirely harmless. That sound is just the needle tip, physically breaking through that dense 3.5 millimeter cartilage matrix. It's not bone cracking, it's literally just physics.
Section 3. The physics of healing.
All right, let's walk through this timeline because setting realistic expectations is literally half the battle. 1 second for the needle transit. Around day 3, you'll see peak swelling. This is just that perichondrial membrane responding to the injury. Between 6 to 8 weeks, you absolutely must return to downsize the jewelry. But notice that final milestone, 6 to 12 months for full maturation. Let me be clear, if your piercing is still tender at 4 months, that is not a failure. That is completely 100% normal avascular behavior.
To really understand why it takes so long, you have to meet the true protagonist of this explainer, the fistula. Because cartilage has zero blood supply, fibroblasts have to really slowly migrate in and deposit collagen around the jewelry to form this super fragile tube of scar tissue. For months, this immature matrix is incredibly delicate, practically fighting to survive in a hostile world of travel pillows and headphone pads. A single accidental snag doesn't just hurt, it physically tears this fragile tube and completely restarts the entire inflammatory cycle.
Section 4. Healing Do's and Don'ts. So the absolutely crucial point here is protecting that fistula, and that comes down to following specific, science-backed interventions. Use indirect ice during the first 48 hours to calm the membrane. Irrigate, please don't scrub, with 0.9% sterile saline. Take ibuprofen with food to manage the inflammation. For all you side sleepers out there, a firm travel pillow where your ear is suspended right in the center hole is a massive game changer. And importantly, getting your piercer to downsize your post once the initial swelling subsides, that is not optional. Leaving a long post in creates a literal lever arm that amplifies every single accidental touch right down into that delicate fistula.
All right, myth-busting time. We've all heard the super old mall piercing advice. Twist or rotate the earring so it doesn't stick. Do not do this. Seriously, the actual science? Leave it completely alone. Rotating the jewelry literally tears apart that immature collagen matrix we just talked about, and even worse, it drags surface bacteria straight into your fresh wound track.
And here's another incredibly persistent myth to avoid: soaking it in tea tree oil, alcohol, or hydrogen peroxide. Ditch the whole shebang. These are incredibly harsh irritants. They dry out the perichondrium, they delay your skin from actually healing over the wound, and they can even cause chemical burns. I can't stress this enough, sterile saline is the absolute only thing that should be touching a healing piercing.
Listen closely, because this is the golden rule to take to heart. Direct pressure on a healing cartilage piercing is the most common cause of prolonged pain, irritation bumps, and migration. No exceptions. Sleeping directly on a healing helix or wearing heavy over-ear headphones on a fresh conch will absolutely sabotage your healing process. If you put pressure on it, it is going to fight back.
Finally, while a little tenderness is par for the course, we really must talk about a specific medical emergency unique to cartilage: perichondritis. Because the cartilage matrix is avascular, it effectively blocks your body's normal immune response to deep infections. If you ever experience spreading redness, intense warmth along the entire ear contour, or a throbbing pain that actively worsens after day 5, that is definitely not something to try and treat at home. It requires immediate, aggressive medical attention and very specific antibiotics that can actually penetrate avascular tissue.
And there you have it, the end of our biological detective story. We've decoded the incredibly slow life of cartilage and mapped out exactly how to protect that fragile healing fistula. So, now that you know the actual physics of the pain and exactly what you're signing up for, what'll it be? Will your next piercing be a helix, a deep conch, or neither? Thanks so much for joining me for this explainer, and hey, stay curious.